10 air conditioners, 5 to avoid, and 5 that actually earn the words cold and quiet at the same time. We pulled the real data on every one. Noise measured with an actual decibel meter, cooling time tracked with a stopwatch, and one finding that has nothing to do with either of those numbers and everything to do with what's sitting in the wall of your bedroom right now. The most avoided design on this list isn't avoided because it's loud or weak. It's avoided because of what the federal government found growing inside it. This category splits into two physical designs that behave nothing alike, and it's worth knowing the split before the individual units make sense. Window units mount half in, half out, with the compressor, the loudest and heaviest part, sitting outside on a bracket. Portable units keep every part of the machine, compressor included, inside the room with you, venting hot air out through a single flexible hose. That design difference is the single biggest predictor of how loud and how effective any given unit turns out to be, more than the brand name on the front, and it's going to matter for nearly every entry on this list. Neither design is automatically the wrong choice. Portable units exist because plenty of windows genuinely can't take a window unit. Casement windows that crank outward instead of sliding, strict lease terms, a room where the window faces a walkway instead of open air. If that's your situation, a portable unit isn't a downgrade you're settling for. It's the only option on the table, and the entries below will tell you which ones to reach for regardless. But if a window unit is even remotely possible in your space, the data on this list is about to make it very clear which category is actually working harder for you and which one is working against itself before it even gets started. Keep that framing in mind as the numbers start coming, because it explains a pattern you're about to see repeat 3 separate times in a row. Before this list even gets to its most serious finding. Number 5. Tussauds, a portable unit that shows up constantly in budget roundups for being sturdy and easy to trust. Reviewed's lab test clocked it at 5,000 BTU, the lowest rating of every portable unit in their comparison, and it landed squarely in the middle of the pack on actual cooling. Noise was unremarkable too, 48 decibels low, 57 on high, exactly average. None of that is a disaster. It's also not what sturdy and trusted is supposed to buy you. A single handle on the back means you're gripping the front vent with your other hand just to move it. Fingers where the airflow's supposed to go. Average cooling, average noise, below average BTU, at a price that isn't meaningfully below the units beating it on every one of those numbers. There's no single reason to avoid this unit outright. There's also no single reason to choose it over anything ranked above it here, and in a category this crowded, being unremarkable in every column is its own kind of failure. A unit doesn't need one dramatic flaw to be the wrong purchase. It just needs a competitor at the same price doing every single thing slightly better, which is exactly the situation Tussauds is sitting in. That 5,000 BTU figure matters more than it looks like on a spec sheet. Energy Star's own sizing guidance puts that rating at rooms up to roughly 150 square feet, smaller than most bedrooms once you account for furniture, closets, and the fact that BTU ratings assume a well-insulated space to begin with. Buy this unit for a room even slightly larger than that guidance, and you're not getting a slower version of adequate cooling. You're getting a unit running flat out, constantly, just to keep pace, which is exactly the condition under which noise complaints and shortened compressor life tend to show up down the road. Number 4. GE's portable air conditioner, a name that carries more built-in trust than Tussauds walking in the door. It delivers decent cooling for a lower price than several competitors, a real strength worth crediting. It also gets loud on higher settings, loud enough that Reviewed's own test flagged it specifically, and it isn't the most portable of the portable units in that same lineup, which is a strange thing to have to say about an appliance whose entire pitch is portability. Decent cooling at a fair price sounds like a real recommendation until you remember you're buying a portable air conditioner specifically because a window unit wasn't an option, which means noise and ease of moving it aren't side details. They're half the reason you're in this category at all. A window unit that's a little loud is a problem you can mostly ignore, because the compressor's outside your wall. A portable unit that's a little loud is a problem sitting in the same room as you, on high, precisely when the room is hottest and you need it running the most. GE's price advantage is real. It's just solving the wrong half of the actual complaint people have with portable units. There's a version of GE's pitch here that's genuinely appealing on paper, a trusted appliance name, a lower price than the field, and cooling that Reviewed itself called decent rather than disappointing. The problem only shows up once you picture the actual use case. Portable units already sacrifice efficiency compared to a window unit doing the same job, and adding a noise complaint on top of that sacrifice means you're paying twice, once in electricity and once in the thing you were trying to escape by buying an air conditioner in the first place, a hot, loud room. Number 3. Midea's standalone portable unit, a different product from the window line coming up in a minute, worth separating clearly so nothing here gets confused with what's ahead. Reviewed's test called the cooling power average, competent, not a problem, but also not the strongest performer in the field. The bigger issue showed up on the noise test, 58 decibels on high, the loudest reading of any unit in that comparison. Add a remote with real responsiveness problems, inputs that don't register or take several seconds to catch up, and you've got a unit that's merely fine at cooling and actively frustrating to operate. 58 decibels doesn't sound dramatic as a number on its own, but it's roughly the volume of a normal conversation happening constantly in the corner of whatever room you're trying to relax, sleep, or work in. Pair that with a remote that lags every time you try to adjust it, and the friction compounds. You're reaching for the controls more often because the unit isn't quite doing what you asked, and every time you do, there's a delay before anything happens. Fine and frustrating isn't a combination that earns a spot in a bedroom, and it's a genuinely strange result from a brand that, as you're about to hear, built its reputation in this exact category on being the quiet option. That contrast is worth sitting with for a moment before moving on. The same manufacturer responsible for the quietest window design multiple outlets have praised also produced the loudest portable unit in this specific comparison. That's not a contradiction in the data, it's a reminder that a company's reputation gets built on its best performing product line, and then gets borrowed by every other product wearing the same logo, whether or not that specific product earned it. Number 2 isn't one brand, it's an entire category, and it's worth understanding why before you buy any single hose portable air conditioner regardless of the logo on it. Consumer Reports has tested more than 24 portable units, and not one of them earned a recommendation in their ratings. Their own conclusion: think of a portable air conditioner as the last resort, better than a fan, but not by much. Here's the mechanism behind that verdict. A single hose portable unit pulls in room air, cools part of it, and vents the hot exhaust outside through that one hose. Venting air out creates negative pressure inside the room, and that negative pressure pulls replacement air in from everywhere it can find a gap: door frames, outlets, the space around the window kit itself. A meaningful chunk of what a single hose unit vents outside gets replaced by warm air leaking back in from outside, which means the unit spends part of every cycle undoing its own work. This is exactly why the 3 specific portable units already on this list, Toso, GE, and Midea, all landed somewhere between average and disappointing despite coming from 3 genuinely different manufacturers with 3 different engineering teams. They're not failing for the same reason a bad recipe fails once. They're running into the same physical ceiling from 3 different directions because the hose design itself has a leak built into the plan before a single component gets assembled. That's not a manufacturing defect one company solved and another didn't. It's the physics of the single hose design itself, and it's why Consumer Reports' advice isn't buy a better one. It's buy a window unit instead if you possibly can. Dual hose portable units exist specifically to fix this problem, drawing the air they use to cool the compressor from outside instead of from the room, which avoids creating the same negative pressure. They're rarer, heavier, and more expensive, and even Consumer Reports' own testing notes they still don't consistently match a window unit's performance. That's the honest state of portable air conditioning as a category right now. The fix for the core design flaw exists, but it isn't cheap, and even paying for it doesn't fully close the gap. If a window unit is even remotely possible for your space, every entry in the winners section below is going to outperform anything in this category, full stop, regardless of hose count. Number 1, and this is the one that matters more than everything else on this list combined. The U and U Plus shaped window air conditioner, the design that multiple independent testers have separately praised as the quietest category on the market, the one built specifically so the compressor sits outside your window instead of humming next to your bed. On June 5, 2025, the Consumer Product Safety Commission recalled roughly 1.7 million of these units over a drainage flaw. Water that's supposed to drain out of the unit was pooling inside it instead, and pooled water in a warm, enclosed appliance is exactly the environment mold needs. The CPSC logged 152 confirmed reports of mold growth, 17 of them including people who developed real symptoms, coughing, sore throats, respiratory infections, from breathing what was growing inside their own air conditioner. Here's the part that makes this bigger than one bad product line. The exact same physical unit was sold under 10 different brand names: Midea, Comfort Air, Danby, Frigidaire, Insignia, Keystone, LBG Products, Mr. Cool, Perfect Air, and Seabreeze. 10 logos, 1 factory, 1 flawed drain design, running from March 2020 through May 2025 in specific U and U Plus shaped model numbers. That's the exact same pattern you've now seen twice in this niche. One manufacturer, many storefronts, except here the stakes aren't a slightly weaker breeze or a shorter runtime. They're mold spores in the air you're breathing while you sleep, in the one room where you're least likely to notice a smell building up over months. If you bought a unit in this design during that window, under any of those 10 names, it's worth checking your model number against the recall regardless of which brand is printed on the front, because the brand name tells you nothing about whether your specific unit shipped before or after the fix. Affected owners qualify for a free repair or a full refund, so this isn't a throw it away and eat the cost situation. It's a go check today situation, and the fix itself is straightforward once you've confirmed your model number. A new drain plug and a bubble level to make sure the unit sits at the correct angle for water to actually drain the way it was designed to. The most quietly recommended air conditioner design in the entire category turned out to have a flaw that had nothing to do with sound and everything to do with what was growing where you couldn't see it. And it took a federal agency, not a marketing department, to catch it. The model number itself lives on a label on the front right side of the unit when you're facing it. Not on the box, not on the manual, on the physical unit itself, which means checking it takes actually walking over to the AC rather than digging through a drawer for paperwork you may not have kept. That's a small ask compared to what's at stake. A unit that's been quietly growing mold behind its front panel for a season or two doesn't necessarily announce itself with a smell strong enough to notice, especially in a bedroom you're only in while you're asleep, which is exactly why this is the one entry on this list worth checking tonight, rather than filing away for later. Now here's what actually earned a place in your window this year, using the same independent noise and cooling data that just took apart everything above it, and deliberately staying away from the design at the center of that recall. Every one of the 5 picks below comes from a different physical category or a different manufacturer than the U-shaped design, on purpose, and every single number attached to them traces back to a lab test, not a bottle, box, or ad claiming it on the company's own authority. LG's LW6017R is the one to start with if budget is the entire decision. Tech Gear Lab's lab test, 15 units run side by side, named it the best simple budget pick in the whole lineup, close enough to the top tier that it's hard to justify spending more if your room is a standard bedroom size. It doesn't chase smart features or app connectivity, and that's arguably a strength rather than a gap. Every extra feature bolted onto an air conditioner is another part that can fail, another seal, another piece of plastic sitting between the compressor and the room. LG kept this one simple: cool the room, do it quietly, don't ask for a Wi-Fi password to get there. And for a first air conditioner, a rental, or a room you don't want to think about twice, that's a higher bar than it sounds. It's also worth pointing out what LG didn't need to do to earn this ranking. It didn't need to be the quietest unit in the test, and it wasn't. It didn't need the lowest energy draw, and it wasn't that either. It earned a top budget ranking the same way Griots and ATP earned their spots in earlier investigations on this channel, by not having a single glaring weakness anywhere on the chart, at a price that undercuts almost everything else in the comparison. GE's window air conditioner earns its spot for a simpler reason. Consumer Reports put it directly alongside Frigidaire and LG in their own quiet AC recommendations, the same list built from actual lab noise testing rather than a marketing claim. If you want a name with decades of appliance history behind it, and a noise result that's been independently verified rather than just printed on the box, this is where that trust is actually backed by a number, not just a logo you already recognized before you started shopping. It's also worth noting the contrast with GE's own portable unit sitting in the Avoid section above. Same company, same decades of appliance engineering behind both products, and a meaningfully better result once the design moved from a single-hose portable format to a proper window-mounted one. That's the design mattering more than the brand, playing out inside a single manufacturer's own lineup. Frigidaire's FHWC054TE1 is the pick if your electric bill matters as much as the noise level. Tech Gear Lab clocked it at just B047 kilowatt-hours on its highest setting, the strongest efficiency result in their entire test group. Worth being exact here, because the name Frigidaire is about to show up twice more in this section and once, very differently, in the entry above it. This is Frigidaire's own standard rectangular window line, not the U-shaped gallery series that shares a factory with the recalled Midea design. Different unit, different drain system, different product entirely, and it's worth checking the model number yourself rather than taking any brand name on faith after everything you just heard. Running the math on that efficiency number matters more than it looks like on paper. A unit sipping under half a kilowatt-hour on its highest setting, run through an entire cooling season, adds up to real savings on a bill most people never think to compare between models. Efficiency numbers like this rarely get the same attention as noise or cooling speed, mostly because they're invisible until the bill arrives. A unit that's marginally louder but meaningfully more efficient can end up being the better long-term choice depending on your local electricity rates and how many months a year it's actually running, which is worth factoring in alongside the noise comparisons rather than treating decibels as the only number that matters. Frigidaire's FFRA051WAE, same standard line, is the other Frigidaire worth knowing about. Tech Gear Lab had it locked in a 3-way tie for second place overall in their 15-unit comparison, right alongside the Midea EasyCool and just ahead of the LG pick above. A 3-way tie for second, in a controlled test against 14 competitors, is a genuinely strong result for a unit that isn't trying to be the flashiest option on the shelf. And it's worth noting that even the Midea unit it tied with is a standard line model, not part of the recalled U-shaped design, which is exactly why checking the specific model number matters more than reacting to a brand name on site. Two Frigidaire units earning spots on this list, from the same standard product line, is less a coincidence than a sign that whatever the company is doing right on this specific line is consistent rather than a one-off. And the one that beat all of them on the single number most people actually care about at bedtime, the Windmill AC, 8000 BTU, built around what the brand calls whisper tech. CNN underscored measured it with an actual decibel meter against every other unit in their test, and it came back with the lowest reading of the group. Tech Gear Lab's own lab test separately flagged it as one of the quietest window units they've ever put through their comparison, a second, independent confirmation of the same result rather than one outlet's opinion. CNN's own cooling test found it only 5 to 10 minutes slower than their top pick at bringing a room down from 80 degrees to 68, a gap small enough to not matter in real use. Testers specifically called out the smart home integration, Alexa and Google Assistant support that actually worked as advertised rather than requiring 3 app updates to function. If the entire reason you're here is a unit you can sleep through, 2 separate labs measuring it against competitors, not just one, both landed on the same answer. That kind of agreement between 2 outlets that don't coordinate with each other is worth more than either result on its own, because it rules out the possibility that one lab just happened to get a good unit off the line that day. Windmill built its entire brand identity around exactly this kind of testing validation, launching as a direct-to-consumer company specifically pitching itself as the modern, design-forward answer to the loud, boxy window units most people grew up with. It's a newer name than GE, LG, or Frigidaire, without decades of appliance history behind it. And in a category where several older, more established names just spent this entire video either failing a noise test or sitting inside a federal recall, newer turned out to be exactly the right kind of unproven. Before you close this, here's the one check that matters more than every spec on this list. If you're shopping for a U-shaped window air conditioner under any brand name, and that includes several units that were never part of this recall, look up the specific model number against the CPSC's public recall database before you buy it used, inherited, or even new from a retailer that might still have old stock on a shelf. A brand name tells you who put their logo on the box. It doesn't tell you which factory built it or which model year you're getting, and on this specific list, that distinction is the difference between a quiet bedroom and a documented health hazard. It's worth stepping back on what actually separated the two halves of this list, because it wasn't price and it wasn't brand recognition. GE showed up on both sides of this video, once as a disappointing portable unit and once as a Consumer Reports verified window pick. Frigidaire showed up as part of the largest recall in this entire category, and, under a different model line, as 2 of the 5 winners. The lesson isn't trust this logo, avoid that one. It's that the physical design and the specific model number did all the actual work here, every single time, and the brand name riding on top of either one told you almost nothing on its own. That's a genuinely uncomfortable conclusion for a channel built on ranking brands, and it's worth sitting with instead of smoothing over. Most categories reward brand loyalty at least a little. A company that gets one product right tends to get the next one mostly right too. Air conditioning, at least in this specific comparison, didn't reward that assumption. The same parent company that builds one of the quietest, most efficient units in this video also built the design at the center of a 1.7 million unit recall, sold under its own name and 9 others. Loyalty to a logo isn't protection in this category. Checking the specific model every single time is. If someone in your life has one of these U-shaped units running right now, sending them this before you send them anything else might be the most useful thing you do today, recall database link included. And if this changed how you think about what a Whisper Quiet label is actually telling you, wait until you see what we found testing the humidifiers making the exact same promise. That one's coming next.